Oh shit, oh, it's already recorded. How nice.
Let's just close the outside one, that makes it easier. Alright, so today we want to pick up where we were last time, do a little brief review. So we were finishing talking about the development of evolutionary theory. Let's run through the theory of natural selection. So, independently derived by who? Came up with the idea. Darwin and Wallace, right? Theory, scientific theory, not conjecture theory, right? Scientific theory, 5 basic principles, all with supporting evidence. What are they? Number 1 is overproduction of progeny. Very good. Number 2 is struggle for existence, competition for resources, because more and more they can be supported. Yes? Number 3, lots of variation within a population. Number 4, fittest survive. Basic variance for a particular environment, survive over others. And then, last one, those traits can be passed on. That's natural selection. What does that mean? The frequency of certain traits will be bigger in the next generation. The frequency of certain traits will be less. Some will be unaffected. If they are maladaptive traits, there will be more or less of them in the next generation. Less. If they are adaptive traits, there will be more. And if they are neutral, they will be the same. Okay, that's the whole idea of it. Is that simple? Yeah. Yes, it's very easy. It is simple and easy and clean. I like things like that. Right? No complexity there. Just boom, boom, boom. Basically, my statement for that is third. This makes a lot of sense. It's so clean and easy, right? Okay. What's the problem with the theory? Darwin had 2 things he didn't know. What were they?
How variation.
Where that variation comes from in the first place, he knew it was there, but how do you get it? No idea. And then finally, how do you move it? How do you pass it generation to generation? He gave him the information about that. Well, he never gave it to Darwin, but we got it. Mendel gave us the information on that. Mendel showed how units of inherent information, male and female gametes were transferred generation to generation to generation, how the frequency of certain traits could be enhanced, decreased, or remain neutral. Bang, there it is. That's genetics, okay? You spent a whole quarter on that probably, or half a quarter on that, yes? Yeah. All right, where's the idea of where variation comes from? Who's the first player in that? Came up with the idea of Guattari. Who's that? Hugo de Vries also gave us the name what? Gene for the unit of inheritable information. Mutations in the gene were responsible for giving variation within the population, and he was correct. What is the unit of inheritable information? Encased in a big molecule, which is what? DNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid. That basic structure was established and brought to the scientific world through Watson and Crick, combining the ideas of Darwin's theories of natural selection, of change through space and time gradually, right, the simple complication gradually, and basic genetics. What do you get? What's that idea called? Neo-Darwinism. However, it does not do a very good job of explaining the entire fossil record. It explains the periods of relative change that are slow, but it doesn't explain the periods that are rapid and quick diversification. Who gave us the explanation for that? Gould and Eldridge, who talked about what was the basic idea. Punctuated equilibrium. After periods of rapid environmental change, they were followed by vast periods of speciation, because you have to solve problems quickly. Winners are now losers and vice versa, and you've got a whole new set of environmental conditions to deal with. With great problems. How do those problems get solved? 3 ways, do you remember? How do you solve an environmental problem? 3 ways via adaptation. What are they? Morphology, physiology, and behavior. Okay? Combine punctuated equilibrium with Darwinian evolution and basic genetics. Throw in a sprinkling of population biology, and what do you get? You get the synthetic theory of evolution, which is what we have today. Is it going to be the same if I teach this class 10 years from now? No. Maybe I'll still be here, or I'll be dead. I don't know. But if I was to teach it, odds are Because what's likely to happen in that time? We're going to get new discoveries that further elucidate the mechanisms that drive evolutionary theory, and it will evolve just like evolution does itself. Evolutionary theory will evolve. That is the joy of science, is that it builds and builds and builds and builds. And what I teach you today will be different from what I teach the next class a year down the road, or 2 years down the road, or 3 years down the road, because we'll know more. Does that mean that what I teach you is garbage? No, it's what we know today, and it helps educate us about the natural world around us. So every time we add something, it gets better and better at doing that. Actually, people who have arguments with evolution have used punctuated equilibrium as an attack on evolutionary theory, which makes literally 0 sense. All it is just an addition to what we commonly know. Does it discredit natural selection? Not at all. It's just another component of how things work. More and more, you'll also get to know that chance has a massive influence on evolution. We'll talk about that in some detail. Often it's thought that evolution is this kind of meticulously crafted thing that happens and everything's driving towards perfection. That is absolute BS. It is a crazy experimental tree of growth going in all kinds of different directions. New things are created, old things are destroyed, things are held, things are lost. It is not some perfect roadmap. Perfection is an endpoint, not a starting point. Right? So that's an endpoint to nowhere. It's basically literally an endpoint, but it's not on the road. That kind of perfection locks you into place. As soon as the environment changes, what will happen? You will go extinct. You want a prime example of that? You ever seen a saber-toothed tiger? Well, no, you've probably never seen one alive. Have you seen the fossils of it? Yes, have you seen the reconstructions of it? That is almost a perfect organism for its time and place. To evolve in every way that you can think of, the adaptations of morphology, physiology, and behavior to be the ultimate hunter in that particular environment full of large, giant game. And they were the best at what they did until the environment changed and their prey started to die. And now I have teeth that are this long, and I have weeds to chew on. What happens to me? I'm gone in an instant, which is what they were. They became too specialized at what they did, and that did not work as the environment changed. So, lumping all that together, we have the modern theory of evolution, or the synthetic theory, again, Darwinian ideas, neo-Darwinian ideas, population biology, punctuated equilibrium, and some chance in there. Short bursts of evolution, followed by long periods of low gradual change through Darwinian evolutionary thought via natural selection. Modifications in organisms and morphology, physiology, or behavior can occur gradually, really fast, or some combination of both. It is the most powerful unifying principle in all of biology. Biology helps biology, right? Because it helps explain the most fundamental question that we have as a biologist. Why the same but yet so different, right? That's a common thing. Why the same and yet so different? Why are we all the same? Why do living organisms share so many things? Because what? Because we evolved from a common ancestor. And what's the kind of lexicon rule? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it worked 3.8 billion years ago, better believe you still have it today. No need to fix it, okay? If you're different, why? Because you have a whole suite of adaptations for what? New environmental problems. That's the whole idea of it. I can sum it up in 2 sentences. There's evolutionary theory. Okay? It's easy. It's simple and it's very clean. And it explains the natural world. All right. Has anyone tried to explain it to somebody yet? Anybody? What the hell are you guys waiting for? Go right now. Go do it. Okay? All right. Start walking through the steps of the microevolutionary process. That's also actually quite simple and elegant. In this case, there are 5 basic steps in the evolutionary process. You start off with what? Variation is acted upon by natural selection, lead to genetic divergence is supported by reproductive isolation, which can lead to speciation. Because this is a 5-week course condensed into 3, I'm going to specialize primarily on sexual or special organisms. That's our 4th slip. Right? Sexual reproducing organisms. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to talk about what the world typically is made made up, which is asexually reproducing organisms of microbial life. Is this a human planet? No, it's a microbial planet. We just happen to live on the top of it someplace, right? But that's really how it's run. So we're going to look at it from the perspective that we're most familiar with, our sexually reproducing organisms. But realize there are many facets of evolution that I'm not going to have time to touch upon dealing with microbial life and asexual reproduction, which are critical for the vast majority of life processes on the planet. Okay? I'm just going to give you a piece. As you go further, you will explore these other facets of evolution. Does an individual evolve?
No.
What evolves? Populations evolve, because all populations display variations in the traits. So microevolution then again is the change in frequencies of alleles from one generation to another in terms of the population. All right, again, hit me with the three things that can evolve. They are what? Morphology, physiology, and behavior, which we refer to as ethology. Okay, ethology is the study of behavior. If the character involved is discrete, meaning it's this or that, it's referred to, I just gave you a name. It's discrete. I have a tendency to do that later. I don't know why. I must be getting too high. Pure Alzheimer's, I will need it soon. All right? So, quantitative characters, what are those? They vary along what? Continuum. It's not this nor that. It's grades between this and that, right? Grades. Continuum. All right. What is an adaptation again? An adjustment or change to meet an environmental condition. What's the simple way to think about it? It's just a what? A solution to an environmental problem. That's all it is, okay? And we solve it via those three traits: morphology, physiology, or ethology. We talked about an adaptive trait. What does an adaptive trait give you? An increase in what? Survivability and reproductive success. A maladaptive trait does what? It does exactly the opposite. It decreases your reproductive success and your survivability. And what about a neutral trait? It neither enhances it nor decreases it in terms of survivability or reproduction. We gave a series of basic definitions that we review. So what's a genotype? What kind of expression is that? The genetic expression. The genotype? What did I just say? Oh, the phenotype, sorry. The phenotype.
That's okay.
I had no sleep last night. I apologize. Sometimes I suffer from bouts of insomnia, and I've just gone through a battle right now, so I can barely spell my name. So if I say ridiculous things, I apologize. All right. Did we answer the question? Phenotype, what is it? Physical expression. Thank you. Genome.
All the genes.
All the genes in a species. Very good. Gene pool. All the genes in a population. Very good. Brown hair.
Phenotype.
That would be an allele. Hair color. That would be an example of a gene. So the gene is the inheritable unit of information that codes for specific traits. A piece of the DNA, right? So an hereditary unit of DNA coding for specific traits. The allele then is different molecular forms of that gene. So blue eyes. Allele. Color. Gene. All right. So I gave you 5 events that will increase the variation within a given population, right? And so there are 5 basic events, especially for
I think I need super glue or something.
what creates brand new alleles? Only one thing. Mutation does. The remaining 4 increase the variation by doing what? Reshuffling what is there. Okay, they don't create anything new. They just create novel combinations of it. So what were they? The first one was crossing over, meiosis 1. The second one was independent assortment.
Honestly, just keep it.
Meiosis 1, and then
Keep this too.
fertilization. The last one is changing chromosomal number or structure.
I'll go talk to Daniel and see. I just can't hear you right now.
So we started taking a look at how do I know if something is evolving? How do I know if a trait is evolving over time? So what's that?
The allele frequency goes up.
The allele frequency will go up, or it can go down, or it might do what? It might stay the same. So I gave you the most coarse metric to look at, right? What's the most coarse metric? It's not allelic frequency, it's phenotypic frequency. It's just kind of a course description. So on that, I just basically count up whatever trait I'm interested in that I can physically see, divide it over the population side, brown eyes, blue eyes, hazel eyes, calculate that percentage. It should add up to what? 100%. It's not, it is natural. That will tell me what portion of the population bears phenotypic. That doesn't tell me a lot about evolution, because I didn't know what the alleles were that coded for that stuff and how they change generation to generation. So instead of phenotypic frequency, I'm interested in what? Allelic frequency. And so I gave you a simple way to calculate allelic frequencies using the wildflowers as an example. So in this case, remember, for diploid organisms, we take basically one gene of a locus. I have a dominant trait and a recessive trait. I can dominate either the recessive or I can donate either the recessive or donate either the dominant trait, and that will give me a series of metrics that I can actually utilize to determine the allelic frequency of a population. The TA will actually run through computation sets of this tomorrow. This will be on your examination, because it is the most common thing that a population geneticist does in order to determine the allelic frequency of the population as a starting point for if things are evolving or not. So be prepared to do it, because you'll see it on the examination. All right. So with that information, I can chart the change in genetic material in terms of traits over time, multiple generations. I think that brings us up to speed, yes? So, we're going to start off with a baseline in order to determine whether a trait is evolving over time. So I need to have this idea of genetic equilibrium. The genetic equilibrium means this, that the frequency of an allele at a given gene locus is not going to change via multiple generations. It remains stable. What are the conditions necessary for it to remain stable? If I know that, I can have a good idea what the conditions might be that are causing it to change, right? But I need to know that it's stable first. So how do we know whether or not a population is evolving with respect to any given trait? So we can use this principle called the Hardy-Weinberg principle, which was first postulated in the early 1900s. It is a simple mathematical expression to describe how to maintain the frequency of alleles of a population over time. To be honest with you, it is the most boring equation ever. Literally. Because it does nothing but turn us, we start in one place and we end up there. Every single time. Over and over and over. It's like running, if I was a hamster, it would be running on the wheel. That's what it does. It's just taking you to the same place every time. It's useful, but it's not the most exciting thing in the world. So let's start with it. In a population in genetic equilibrium, we have a proportion of the genotypes at one gene locus, and we're going to talk about the two kinds of alleles. And we can actually express this as a binomial expansion. You guys have all seen that equation at high school. It's a basic algebraic expression, right? And so the polynomial expansion, in this particular case, p squared plus 2p cubed plus q squared is equal to 1. In this particular example, p squared is an analog for big A, homozygous what? Dominant. 2pq is an analog for the heterozygotes, which is big A, little a, and q squared is a surrogate for homozygous recessive, which is little a, little a. P is the frequency of the big A, dominant allele. Q is the frequency of the small a, recessive allele. So here are the rules. Frequencies of alleles will remain stable through successive generations if there's no gene mutation, the population is very large, the population is isolated from other populations without immigration or emigration, and the gene has no effect on the survival or reproduction, and finally that mating is completely random. Those are the assumptions of the conceptual model. Right? The mathematical model, I should say. So I want you to look at those assumptions. How realistic are they for natural populations? They're not very realistic. Okay? We'll come back and talk about why they're not realistic. But those are the basic assumptions of the model. So here's an example. I'm going to use butterfly wing color. All right, this is my example. pairs of genes on pairs of homologous chromosomes. And I'm going to assume that this population is in equilibrium for wing color. So, when I look at the alleles that are responsible for the phenotypic expression of the wing color, this is what I get. The big A allele is responsible for dark wings, because it's the dominant allele. The little a, the recessive allele, is responsible for white wings, and the heterozygote is going to be a blend. It shows incomplete dominance. So a big A, a little a will express as light blue wings. So if I was to look at these animals, this would be a homozygous dominant individual, and it would express as dark blue wings. This would be a homozygous recessive individual, and it would express as white wings. So, excuse me, that would be over there, that expresses white wings. And then in the middle would be a heterozygote condition, and that would express as light blue wings. So the frequency of the large dominant allele A and the small a recessive allele must add up to 1 in any population. So therefore, P plus Q is equal to 1. During meiosis, each one of those alleles will segregate from its partner and end up in separate gametes. Therefore, P is a function of the proportion of gametes that carry the big A allele, and Q is the proportion of gametes that carry the small A allele. So what are my expected frequencies? You've all seen that thing right there. What is that thing called again?
Punnett square.
That is a Punnett square. I'm sure you did that till you're bleeding out of your eyes, right? 1A? Yes? So everybody's acquainted with how they function and how they work? Okay, good. So this should be some review then. So the expected frequencies in this case of the three genotypes, homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, and the heterozygote in the next generation are such. So if I run the Punnett square, this is what I get. I have P squared, big A, I have PQ, big A, little a, I have little a, big A, PQ again, and then finally I have homozygous recessive addition to Q squared. So when I look at that, it adds up to this basic frequency, P squared plus 2PQ plus Q squared. That's where the equation is derived from, right? 1, 1, and 2. You got it? There it is. So again, squared, add the 2 together, 2PQ. So that's where it's derived from. Who cares? Why is it important? Because utilizing that, I can determine lots of things about this population. So I'm going to give you an example now. I have 1,000 butterflies. Each produces 2 gametes pop. So I'm going to give you some examples of a breakdown, some starting values. I say there are 490 individuals that are homozygous dominant for the dark blue condition. Those individuals will then produce 980 big A gametes, because it's, again, a diploid organism. There are 420 heterozygotes within this population, and they will produce 420 big A alleles and 420 small a recessive alleles. And then I have 90 homozygous recessive individuals in the population, and they're going to produce 180 small a gametes. If I add all that together, what do I get? 2,000. How many individuals are in the population? 1,000. They're diploid organisms. How many gametes will they produce? 2,000. So the frequency of the dominant allele and the frequency of the recessive allele among the 2,000 gametes is P is a function of 980 plus 420 divided by 2,000. What is the percentile there? It is 0.7. That means that 70% of this population bears what? The dominant allele. All right? I do the same thing for the recessive allele. Q is a function of 420 plus 180 divided by 2,000. 0.3, how much of the percentage of this population bears the recessive allele? 30%. What does it add up to? 100%. 1. Right? So in this case, 70% for the dominant allele, 30% for the recessive allele. At fertilization, the gametes are going to be combined at random. They give to the rise to the next generation of butterflies. Assuming the population remains constant at 1,000 individuals, I now do some mathematics. P squared, well, what will that be? 0.7 times 0.7, that's 0.49. How many individuals? 1,000. 0.49 times 1,000 is 490 individuals that are homozygous dominant. If I do 2PQ, now I'm looking at 2 times 0.7 times 0.3, that's going to be divided times 1,000. That gives me 420 individuals that are heterozygotes. I do the same thing for Q squared. 0.3 times 0.3 equals 0.09 times 1,000, and that's going to give me 90 individuals that are homozygous recessive. Does that look familiar? It should, because it's what? It's exactly the genotype of what? the original population. Has anything changed at all? Have any of these frequencies changed from one generation to the next? I have exactly the same number of dark blue, light blue, and white individuals, and has their allelic frequency changed at all? No, not yet. Let's take a look. So the number of individuals and the way that they phenotypically look was exactly the same. So if I plug this into my binomial expansion, what do I get? P squared is 0.49, 2pq is 0.42, and then q squared is 0.09, 1%. I know I did my math right. If that's not 1, I say 1%, I should have said 100% or 1, and I know I did the math right. If it's 98, I did it wrong. If it's 105, I did it wrong. Okay? All right. How do I know what's going on? I want to take a look at my allelic frequencies to see if they have changed. And they have not.